This weekend there was an attempted assassination of former US President Donald Trump. It's pretty much all that anyone's talking about for obvious reasons, and I figured that viewers would want to hear my take on it. So we'll have a look at that on this week's episode of Don't Talk TV, especially looking at what legal implications there might be, especially in light of the recent Supreme Court decision of United States versus Donald Trump. Hello, my name's Nicholas Wansbutt. I'm a lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and welcome to Don't Talk TV. So everyone knows, I'm sure this isn't news to anyone, that there was an attempted assassination of former US President Donald Trump on Saturday. He survived. Sadly, at least one person in the crowd was killed and others were critically wounded. So it's still a terrible tragedy, notwithstanding the fact that the assassination target survived. He was apparently hit in the ear. I mean, if his head had been tilted a slightly different angle, or the wind had been 1 kilometer per hour different than it was, we'd probably be talking about his death instead of him living. But obviously a very dramatic and probably a historic event. These are the sorts of events that have caused wars. I think the United States may well have avoided a civil war by the fact that Mr. Trump survived, because he has a lot of extremely devoted followers, we could say, and in light of the heat of politics in the United States, it could have started to boil over. Which brings me to the first point. There's been a lot of talk about the rhetoric, and in fact a lot of people blaming Mr. Trump for almost being a victim of an assassination, was saying that, because he's so mean and he says so many divisive things, that he's really brought this upon himself. You can see that in the legacy media a fair bit. Although, in fairness, the legacy media has talked a bit about some of the rhetoric and tone from the other side. And here's just a couple examples of Joe Biden's campaign ads that have been running.
Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Of course I hate these people.
Donald Trump disrespecting black folk is nothing new. He was sued for refusing to rent his apartments to black families and called for the execution of 5 innocent black and brown teenagers.
And it's more than anger, it's hatred.
It's why Trump stood with violent white supremacists, warned of a bloodbath if he loses the next election, and if he's president again, vowed to be a dictator who wants revenge on his enemies. Now, who do you think that is?
Of course I hate these people.
January 6th, Donald Trump lit a fire in this country.
140 officers were injured. The siege lasted for 7 hours.
Stoking the flames of division and hate. Now he's pouring gasoline.
They were unbelievable patriots.
Pledging to pardon the extremists who tried to overthrow our government.
We will give them pardons.
Inciting them to try again. There is nothing more sacred than our democracy. But Donald Trump's ready to burn it all down.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Now, we could certainly run many more examples than that, but I think that gives you an idea. But it's not just this election cycle. I mean, for about 8 years now, the media has been talking incessantly about how Donald Trump is another Hitler, how he's a fascist, how he's a danger to democracy. So in that context, it's not a huge leap to think that some young person, probably with mental health issues, who's of a left persuasion, would think, there's no way to save democracy. Mr. Trump's probably going to win, especially after how bad the current ruling president did in the debate. So someone has to do something. Reminds me of the Stephen King film and novel The Dead Zone, where the main character in that, when he touches people, he's able to see some of their future. He sees this man who's running for president who's going to cause a nuclear war, so he takes it into his own hands to attempt to assassinate that individual. Kind of reminds me of that, thinking of all the talk about how evil Donald Trump is and what a danger he is to democracy. But I think talking about the rhetoric misses the point. This isn't really about rhetoric, or the rhetoric is caused by something else. And this is really about ideology and policy. And that's what's kind of glossed over, it seems to me. The reason why the rhetoric is so hot and why politics are so divided isn't just because of social media and the internet. That likely plays a role, but in my view, it also is caused, or it's the real cause is the policies that are being promoted by our leadership. And those type of policies are so detrimental to the people living under them. And we've talked about all kinds of these. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time going over this, but you can look through my channel. Look at some of the policies that are implemented during COVID, the lockdowns, the vilification of a whole segment of the population, the violent suppression of the Freedom Convoy. We look at how the government actively does nothing to stop things like the burning of churches. I think we're up to 200 now. How Black Lives Matter and Antifa, when they're rioting and tearing down statues and burning buildings, that's okay. But then they'll come down like a ton of bricks on other people. I know of people who've been investigated by CSIS for the so-called crime of going for a hike with some other like-minded individuals. So it's these sort of policies and ideologies, and the very intolerant ideology that, you know, anyone who doesn't totally agree with the liberal view of things, they're just evil. I think that's what really played into this more. Now, lots have been said about how it happened. I mean, I think this has been talked about in the media as well, which is actually a little bit surprising that they've actually, I mean, they almost sound like conspiracy theorists when they're admitting it, how blatantly incompetent Mr. Trump's security detail and the police were in this instance, and saying that questions need to be asked, and absolutely questions need to be asked. Although bold prediction, those questions will be asked, but it'll be another multi-million-dollar commission that makes a few recommendations, but nothing really happens. But the incompetence here is really quite shocking. I mean, from the fact that this building that was about 150 yards away from where Mr. Trump was giving his speech, this building was left unsecure. The roof had no police on it, and in fact allowed this individual to be going around on the roof. You can see videos where people are filming this man crawling into position on the roof, and they're calling for the police to go and do something about it, and they do absolutely nothing. Also looking at the footage, it looks like the snipers on the roof beside Mr. Trump are looking at this individual. Instead of firing at him when he fires the first shot, you see the one sniper's eyes come off his sight. They seem shocked and overwhelmed. And then they took him down, but not until after he'd killed a 50-year-old father, critically wounded some others, and gave a flesh wound to Mr. Trump. So, I mean, this is just astonishing that the Secret Service, I mean, their whole job is protecting people like this, that this could happen. And then, I mean, these same Secret Service officers who are supposed to be protecting Mr. Trump, you see them hiding behind him instead of protecting him, not able to holster their firearm. It just seems like there's people that shouldn't even be there are on the team. Now, that raises a question. A lot of people saying, well, can the Secret Service actually be that incompetent? Is this on purpose? Is it funding? There's been some suggestion that there's fighting between Mr. Trump's people and the Biden administration over trying to get more resources, and those resources being denied. But even if it was on purpose, let's just put on the tinfoil hats, as the legacy media would say. Let's go down the path of what if there was some conspiracy theory? What if, I'm not suggesting that he did, but what if President Biden actually ordered the death of Donald Trump? What if he actually ordered a hit on Donald Trump? Well, I think that makes the very recent decision of United States versus Donald J. Trump very interesting. Let's just look at it real quick, but we'll link to the PDF in the show description if you want to read the whole 120 pages of it. Here we've got the case, Trump versus United States, and let's just go what was the holding of the Supreme Court here. It says, under our constitutional structure of separated powers, the nature of presidential power entitles a former president to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority, as he is entitled to at least presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. There is no immunity for unofficial acts. Now, I think that if President Biden had actually ordered the CIA or the Secret Service to make this happen, that would probably be an official act. So in a hypothetical scenario where the Biden administration was proven to actually have had a role in this, the people who were cheering just a few weeks ago about the Supreme Court decision might not be cheering so much when all of a sudden the shoe is on the other foot, as the saying goes. So those are just a few quick thoughts. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of analysis and discussion of this, but again, I figured viewers would probably want to hear what I had to say about it. So obviously, this video isn't legal advice. Certainly, my interpretation of United States versus Trump, or Trump versus the United States, shouldn't be taken as any sort of legal advice, because I don't practice in the United States. And this video isn't legal advice, but if you need legal advice, you need to speak to a lawyer who can comment on the specifics of your situation after having heard the details, read the pertinent documents. If you want me to be that lawyer, my contact information is below. We're always interested in suggestions for show topics, so please send an email or leave a comment in the comments section. Email address for that is listed below. And if you found this video at all interesting, helpful, or informative, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and following us on social media.